Okay, we are recording on Monday, June 10th with some, not really breaking anymore, but still some news. So, Jason, do you want to tell us what is going on?
Yeah, we thought we'd break in just because, this is near and dear to our hearts. But I guess it's been since Thursday of last week. So today is June 11th?
June 10th. I just said that. It's like you never listened to me.
I listened to the important parts. I just...
Monday, June 10th is what I said.
I can't listen to all the words. Okay?
And I just had to double check to make sure that it was Monday, June 10th. But it is. It is.
So we're getting this out of the way. It's Monday, June 10th. And then over a course of 72 hours last week, the Dallas-Fort Worth area lost 6 theaters. Not just fucking theaters, but like theaters. I mean, not your AMCs, your cinema, things that you could stomach.
Yeah.
Right? The things that you might have seen coming. The AMC Lake Worth that never has anybody in it, right? You might have been, maybe they're going to shut that one down. Alas, we lost the Angelika, I guess, on Tuesday.
The Angelika in Plano.
The Angelika in Plano, yes. And so we still have the Angelika in Dallas proper, Mockingbird Station, but we lost the Angelika in Plano, which, to be fair, I very rarely found myself going to. It was just too far away.
Too far away, yeah. Right.
And then I could just go to the Angelika in Dallas if I wanted to see something at the Angelika. Right. And they did not have such disparate offerings that it would make sense to.
They weren't too disparate, is what you were trying to say. Yeah,
they were desperate,
but that's not to take anything away from the community there in Plano that lost a theater like that.
Oh, of course.
Now I don't know how close Plano is to the other one.
Probably about 35 to 40 miles. I mean, like a good bit.
Still a chunk, yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't an easy. So I mean, if you're talking about like just geography and the Dallas-Fort Worth as a whole, I mean, yes, it's it would have made sense to have two and have them that far apart. And then we lost 5 Alamo Drafthouses, all the Alamo Drafthouses that were in the area. We lost one of them. There were 6, and we lost one of those to COVID. When everything shut down for COVID, one of them didn't open back up. And so those were due to poor performance, but also due to predatory nature of private equity firms. So
because these were franchised out.
These were franchised out.
And these were like venture capitalists, right?
Yes, yeah. These guys,
weren't they based out of the Twin Cities?
Yes.
Because Twin Cities closed.
Correct. They lost 6. They lost 6 Alamo Drafthouses in total, 5 in the DFW area. And they opened up in July of 2013. So they made it just a little under 11 years here in the area. The Angelika was almost 20 years old so what happened there, they had a few theaters that were performing very poorly, that were basically hemorrhaging money. Some of them were just in bad spots, particularly the Las Colinas one, which was really not... One, on paper, it kind of makes sense. You've got a lot of people that live over there. There's a ton of apartments. But the problem is it was nestled in with a music venue. And really everything that's over there is kind of catered to either the convention center or the music venue. And so if you're going to see a movie there on a Friday night and there's also a concert going on, you're dealing with a bunch of horse shit.
And it's a pain in the ass.
It's a pain in the ass to get parking. It's a pain in the ass to just navigate the whole area. So it was a bad location from jump, essentially. Like I said, I can understand why they put it in. I'm sure there were incentives from Las Colinas to get them into that area. But I digress. I shouldn't regress.
How much farther can you regress?
No, it's not. Yeah, I don't have much to go. But the corporate company, which is now Alamo declared Chapter 11 bankruptcy during the pandemic as a corporation. Started selling off bits and pieces of its business. It sold off Mondo to
kidneys.
Yes, it sold off its Mondo poster company to Funko Pops, the Funko company, and then it did sell out its theater chain to a private equity firm. And so the franchisees were unable to close individual theaters without still paying the franchise fees of those theaters. So they had to declare Chapter 11 bankruptcy. So on its face, the worst thing that happened is, for the worst thing that happened is over 600 people lost their jobs. Not only that, they did not get paid. So any paychecks that were coming to them, any fees, monies, benefits that were owed to them, they stopped as of 6 a.m. on June 6th. And so these people were dealing with not only the loss of a job, but a loss of a place that they love. Because here's the thing about, I mean, I'm sure not to a person, right? I'm sure there are people that just, it was a paycheck too. But for the most part, the people that you met at an Alamo Drafthouse, especially the people that were working in the bar, that were programming there, those people fucking loved movies. They loved working there, even though there were difficulties, especially now that they're owned by private equity. But now they all have to register as creditors to get their money. And so there, there's a lot of like, it's weird. And I say this is weird. A lot of people loved the Alamo Drafthouse. I mean, they kind of associated with the brand. They associate with, there is a very much a Todd Browning freaks, one of us, you accept us, one of us kind of thing going on with the Alamo Drafthouse, where they show repertory films. They love all of the films that they show. The corporate mantra was that they never showed so bad it's good. They always loved everything that they put on screen. There was a reason for everything they put on screen. And to that extent, that kind of built their brand. It made Dallas-Fort Worth a cooler place to go see movies. I was there the opening day of the Richardson one. They showed The World's End and Simon Pegg, Nick Frost, Edgar Wright were there, kind of just, and like this was, no one, they hadn't even opened the theater yet. They just opened up Theater 6 in Richardson, and they were, ushering people in through a building that's being built. And it was just a cool event. And like I said, there were very few places like that. The Angelikas and the Magnolias were cool for art house reasons. The Inwood occasionally would do some midnight movies, and the Texas was really just coming up, right? They hadn't... Right. I mean, they had been around for probably about 4 or 5 years. I think they in earnest restarted in 2009, if I'm not mistaken. I'd have to go back and look. But
when I got here in 2012, I remember seeing stuff about the Texas, but it felt much more like I feel like what they were really sort of pushing was like the Tuesday night trash type stuff.
Right.
And it wasn't what it is now. And so for someone like me, there wasn't a whole lot of draw to it yet.
Right. Yeah, it hadn't found it.
Someone like me, a snob. Let's just.
Well, and the Inwood, I wish you could have seen it like in its glory days.
Right.
Because it really was like this beautiful, like old school New York City, like 3-screen, just gorgeous. Like, you could see the 35 millimeter projector. Like there was a window where you could watch it, running. The bar was like Art Deco and cool, and like the guys mowing the lawn outside.
I know.
We shouldn't be recording on a Monday.
This is Monday afternoon.
The world's telling us this is not.
We usually record later. There isn't as much kind of background noise.
So, yeah, I mean, like it built a whole. It really weirdly built a whole community around itself. There was Facebook groups dedicated to the theater, and yes, there were naysayers and there were people that had bad experiences, and there's always people.
But that's everywhere.
The salty ground.
But that is everywhere, right? I mean, people have bad experiences everywhere, and I don't want to denigrate those or dismiss those bad experiences, but you're going to have more good experiences than bad experiences at them.
Right. And so the announcement came out, and basically we started hearing rumblings from the employees. They got I'm sure it was on their Slack, and they got, or whatever tool that they used to communicate with employees, and said, hey, you no longer have a job, we're closed. Yeah. The city of Richardson had just given the Alamo Drafthouse $400,000 worth of grant money to renovate, although they only used half of it. So, I mean, like, there's a whole, like, as these things happen, same thing would happen with the ISIS, there's going to be more and more things that come out, as a whole. But in corporate Alamo Drafthouse was like, whoa, we're surprised, which is, fuck you, that was bullshit.
Yeah,
Right. This is not something that, like, these guys didn't do this in a vacuum just to say, fuck you, we're gonna declare Chapter 7. But they're like, we're going to do our best to start, getting these theaters, back in the area.
Right.
and we're going to try to get them open as quickly as we possibly can. And, the city of Richardson's like, we're already working with our, the people in this shopping center. We're going to keep this vital, blah, 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 Richardson, blah, blah, blah. And then the Alamo Drafthouse also said that there was still an area, there's still one in Grand Prairie that's supposed to be breaking ground in 2024, which I'll believe that when I see it. That's been talked about for quite some time.
Right.
But I mean, at the end of the day, everybody in the groups and the chatter on the different, news postings and what have you were like, we hope it comes back, and there's like this modicum of hope because of what the corporate said. But I mean, if you look at it just on paper, right? I mean, like, depending on how many creditors there are, it's Chapter 7. This is not Chapter 11. They're going to have to liquidate everything. Right. That means every popcorn bowl and fork and spoon and everything that's in those theaters that wasn't,
But does this leave any room for someone else to come in, though? And like, I mean, is there any kind of? I don't know enough about bankruptcy law.
I'm not an expert either.
Right? Yeah, I mean. I didn't think you were, but it sounded like you knew more than I did. So, but is there any room for someone else to come in, and take over?
Potentially, but not before things are liquidated. Right. So I don't know the ownership of the buildings themselves. I mean, like, Denton is a standalone building.
Right.
Lake Highlands, Cedars is a standalone building. Lake Highlands, Richardson, and Las Colinas all are part of a complex, right? There's no one going to come in and renovate Las Colinas. That's going to be office space or something else once they sell everything that's there. You might put a restaurant there because they do have restaurant facilities at an Alamo Drafthouse. But there's not going to be a movie. There's not going to be a movie tavern or a studio movie grill or Look Theaters that it's going to open up in that location just because it does not make sense. Like, it makes sense geographically because there's really nothing in that entire area, but in that particular location, it doesn't make sense. Richardson, it's possible that once all the dust is settled and they've inventoried everything and sold everything and paid off everybody to the 3 cents on the dollar that everyone's actually going to get, that at the end of the day, that someone can come in and take over those locations. But whether they will or not, who knows? I mean, I think there were profitability pieces in all of them, and possibly Alamo Drafthouse could, as a corporate entity, come back in and buy those. But you're looking at least a year, at the bare minimum, because what you've been talking about, 6 months before this guy actually goes to auction, right? This starts to go and liquidate. 6 months at the bare minimum of some, and because they just filed in June, right? So nothing at the end of the year. And then by that time, you've got to figure out where you are as far as the buildings are concerned, reopening up these businesses, staffing up, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then, who knows? I mean, it's possible, but we're not going to get all 5 of them back. And we're definitely, regardless of what happens, it's it is a different entity that will be there. Who knows? So most of the people that made the thing, not that you can't get new people, but most of the people that were there, will no longer be. They'll be doing their thing someplace else, right? And they won't be available to make this place a place anymore.
Yeah. So I mean, like, we could get more AMCs. We could get more, but not theaters that are willing to show rep screenings. Or, I mean,
all of them are eateries, right? So you're going to have to look at a movie tavern or a brew pub or or maybe a studio movie grill. But there's a studio movie grill right up the street from the Alamo Richardson, so there's no reason for them to do that. So I think that the profitability of these theaters was so much tied to the identity of the Alamo Drafthouse that I just don't believe that if you put a movie tavern or whatever the hell else exists anymore. I don't typically go to those if the Alamo didn't offer food, I wouldn't be seeking out a place that offered food, to be honest. It's not really
because this is what you just said speaks to what we're actually losing. I mean, yes, we're losing a place to watch movies, but we're losing an ethos. Right. Because it's not, you didn't go for the food, right? You went because of what they were willing to show. Right. And that they were showing things that other places weren't going to.
Well, and they did movie parties and, they were just other things that made the place special, right?
Right.
But yeah, no, I mean, and it sucks. It sucks for Dallas-Fort Worth, and it sucks for obviously, without saying, It sucks for the people that were working there and that people that poured their heart and soul into it. But we've been talking about this since Diff, and about the status of movie theaters as a whole. And I don't know if you saw, there was a clip going around with Michael Rosenblum. I think that's the guy's name, who was on Smallville. He played Lex Luthor on Smallville. And he was in a...
Did you really think that I
No, I didn't,
Smallville?
but you might recognize who that guy was. Anyway, Kevin Smith was on his podcast talking about theatrical presentation, and I think he was spot on. I basically saying that, it's in decline, and that eventually this is going to become like, it's always going to exist, but it's going to become like Broadway. It's going to become... It's going to become something that is priced out of most people's range, which it already actually is, and
which you've heard me bitch about on this podcast,
right?
Number of times.
We talk about making theaters great again, right? And this idea of MATA, make American theaters again. I don't even know. It doesn't work out.
That's okay.
MTA, MTG,
MTGA,
Imtiga.
That works.
We've passed the time where the theaters are an every weekend thing for families, right? I mean, for a variety of different reasons, not just the cost, but it is largely the cost.
Yeah.
I mean, and ticket prices have stayed relatively in line with inflation. Maybe not so much here in metropolitan areas, but I would say overall average ticket prices, which kind of hover around $9 or about $10 right now. If you go back and look at the grand scheme of things, there's been slight jumps, but for the most part, ticket prices are in line. So, but when you talk about trying to go on the weekends, for a family of four, in the door is $60. And then if everyone gets a drink and then everyone, shares a popcorn or gets a candy, you're talking about $110 or $50 all in.
Yeah. And
you can't do that every single weekend, right? And it's not, especially when you've got, you're already spending, and again, everyone's been spending money in regards to streaming services and things like that. We've all been spending the same money forever.
Sure.
Right? I mean, everyone's probably, regardless of, they were going to get our money somehow, right? So we're all still spending about $100 a month, whether we do DirecTV or whether we just do a slew of streaming services. And now, most likely, we all do the same shit. Like, we do both probably at this point.
Yeah, right.
But the days of every weekend cinema is gone. It's gone. And so the only recourse for theaters is to try to figure out where to get more money from you. So the people that are going, how to squeeze those dollars out of them, right? I would love to say that, if you did lower the price of concessions, did offer up some sort of family subscription service, offered up the ability to have your ticket prices go towards a physical release at some time. There's things that they can do, but tell me when you've seen an American industry right itself. And not only right itself, but shrink itself to shareholders. If AMC were to go, look, we're going to shrink voluntarily. Mm-hmm. We're going to close theaters. We're going to lower prices in order to potentially gain, but also at the end of the day, we're not going to lose market share. We're probably going to gain market share, but we're not going to be able to grow because of these efforts. It's never going to do that.
No.
And we've seen this industry after industry, especially entertainment industry after. This is it. This is Blockbuster. This is the mom and pop video store. This is the record store. This is the video arcades. This is the end. So I hope, yes, people like us will always go to the theater. There's always going to be a repertory screen somewhere, especially because we live in an area that has 4 to 5 million people on population. Yeah. But if you live somewhere in Podunk, no fuck where in Texas,
not even that, but excuse me, but even like smaller Midwestern cities.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You're not going to find this stuff.
50,000 or people or less, you probably don't have a theater now anyway.
If you're under 800,000,
yeah,
you probably
right.
You probably don't have much.
Right.
Right.
And I mean, and that's going to continue to eat itself. And I mean, the industry is eating itself in a way. I mean, the studios clearly don't care. They took a movie that was starring quite possibly the biggest star in the world, and took it out of theaters after 3 weeks because it wasn't doing well. I'm talking about the Fall Guys.
I was gonna make a joke and say like Garfield.
Yes.
Yeah. But what you're saying is another issue, right? Of like the time from when a movie is in theaters to when it's at home, right, has shrunk. I mean, so much since like we were kids, well, right? Or since we were like, just a few years ago,
even pre-COVID.
Yeah,
right? It was 6 months. It was bare minimum 4 months in the theaters, I remember when AMC when they tried to do a 3-month movie or a 4-month movie, and AMC was like, we're not going to show it. We will legitimately not show it in our theaters if you're going to take it out that quickly.
Wasn't that like a Soderbergh movie?
It might have been. I'm not sure. But it was.
I feel like he was one who was like trying to play with that idea of like simultaneous release everywhere.
Right. Yeah.
It sounds like something he would.
It does sound like something he would do. But when a Ryan Gosling film, who was the biggest star of the previous year, and granted, the movie will flop for a whole
slew of reasons.
Right. Yeah. And so if you take it out. You gut it, and they've been looking for a way to reduce this window forever.
Oh, yeah.
And at a certain point, it doesn't make sense to, like, if you have Netflix, and you have Apple, and you have Hulu, and you have Amazon lining up to pay you money, why would you go to the theaters?
Right. Right. If you're that family, right, or even if you're just a person who's like, well, I could go to the theater, but I'll just wait. Right. I'll just wait a few weeks until I can watch it at home.
If it's 3 weeks, why? Yeah, you would have probably forgotten it got released. Because this is not an era of like we're seeing trailers everywhere anymore. Unless you go to the movie theaters. Where's the last time you saw a trailer for anything when you didn't go to the theater?
You fire up YouTube, and that's what you do is you watch trailers on YouTube.
Right.
But no, you don't see them anywhere else.
And so that's only going to become more and more of a problem. And there will be stars that try to fight it, and there'll be all this like nonsense about, thank you for coming to the movies and seeing it on the big screen. The Nolans will still film in 70 millimeter, right? And you'll still get the diehards that go to see a 70 millimeter screening of something. But for Joe Q public, he's just not going to give a shit, especially when you can get an 85-inch TV at Sam's for under $1,000.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Right.
And you can get a better than decent sound system for home.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. It sucks. And I wish I hate to be Debbie Downer, but as everyone was like on the message boards over the weekend about the Alamo, I was just like, this is it.
Yeah.
Even if the Alamo reopens, which, let's give it a year and see how the theater industry is in a year and see if anybody wants to open up a theater.
Right.
Wants to back into an...
and even if it does reopen, again, is it going to reopen with that same ethos?
Right.
Probably not.
And
I don't know.
Right. And it's all the same thing, right? Everyone has the same complaints that the audience sucks, the presentation sucks, it's too expensive. Like Hollywood shouldn't, be rolling out retread crap and sequels.
That's true.
And,
it should.
But the thing is that's always people have always.
But it's always
assholes,
no. I was just going to say like a lot of this has just been going on, right?
Right. I guarantee you there was somebody in 1912 going, "Fuck, I'm so tired of this like." Of Charlie Chaplin doing this bullshit over and over again.
Same thing over and over.
They're going to fall down again. Same goddamn organ
Just
player.
Another tramp. Yeah, and people... oh, God. And people in the audience have always been...
Right. Smacking their, who knows?
Okay, so now it's maybe people on cell phone or on cell phones, on their smartphones, but then it was something else. Right?
Teenagers have always been assholes.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
They've always been throwing popcorn from the balcony. It's the same behavior. Nothing's really changed. But you've priced yourself out of...
suck as a species.
Yeah.
No.
Well, especially when we all get together and feel like we can have the comforts of home. But you can only...
We're owed the comforts of home.
You can only squeeze your customer base so much, right? There's only so many popcorn buckets that people need to fucking buy.
Which is like zero.
Sure. But I understand the sentiment, right? I actually think that's a pretty clever ploy to get people in and get people excited about the film, but it only will last for so long. You have to continually one-up yourself with a popcorn bucket, right? And at some point, you're going to be left with 1,000, a million of popcorn buckets for some movie.
Are they doing? Is A24 doing a popcorn bucket for Maxine?
Yeah, but you don't want to know. What,
Is it kind of like the Dune one?
Yes, it's oof.
Sorry.
But so I don't know, man. Like I said, I hate to be a downer, and I think there always will be places for people like us, right? There's always going to be people, but I do think that at the end of the day, I think and again, not to toot our own horn or to like blow smoke up our own asses, but to cherish the gorilla in everyone, right? To cherish these screenings and these like, even if it's a fucking, you go to, you go in the back room of some bar somewhere, or you going into like a pool hall that's showing, I mean, like, you're going to have to seek these things out if you want this type of community around film. And I just don't like it. I don't feel like, and it's going to stop. You're going to lose this. And once it like just kind of dwindles out. And when I say this, I mean the camaraderie around film, the excitement,
the communal cinematic experience.
Well, not only that, but like, it's also the social the social cachet you would get about knowing or of seeing a film that you'd feel left out if you hadn't seen like X, Y, or Z. Like I said, we've had this conversation before about what's the last film that you can really say that about, like legitimately. I mean, where everyone was like, "Holy shit, you've got to see X." Yeah. And I mean, maybe it was Barbie and Oppenheimer. Most likely, it was probably Jurassic Park. I mean, like, I
was gonna say, yeah. I mean, we said that about Barbie and Oppenheimer, but really, I think it goes back farther.
But like, as soon as films come out to Netflix or whatever, they're gone immediately. There's not going to be this like. There's not going to be. Occasionally, they will pop up. Occasionally, a thing like Squid Game will pop up, which will have a very brief moment in time where people are going to go, "Oh shit, you need to see this," and immediately it's going to be taken up by something else. Yep. And it will never reach the levels of, "Oh shit, this is like everyone's talking about this thing." It's just it's not coming back.
No more Kramer versus Kramer, kids.
The biggest film of.
I should be such a smart ass all the time, I guess.
But yeah, no. I mean, like I said, it sucks. We'll pour one out for the Alamo Drafthouse and the Angelika. I mean, and obviously we'll pour one out for the folks that lost their jobs, and hopefully they find some place to land pretty soon.
Right.
Because that is the worst. And I hope that they, and I know this won't be the case, but I hope that they are the first creditors to get paid. I could give a shit about some beer company that didn't get their fucking. They'll write that shit off, but a person who needs to pay their fucking rent needs that fucking money, and they earn that money, so they should be paid it.
Well, you know what? They should have gotten a different job that wasn't so.
Right? Why should I? I have to bail them out?
Yeah. Right.
But yeah, I guess my last thought is cherish this while you can, because it will continue to diminish. And I think within a decade's time, it will be something that people talk about going once in a while, and you will hardly ever see new films be released, and it will be Broadway, like Smith said. It'll be oh shit, we're always running Rocky Horror, and we're always running these films that we have prints of, and then once in a blue moon, once somebody like Nolan or Spielberg or Cameron determine that the film has to be released in theaters. But ultimately, when there are no more theaters, what are they going to fucking do? Right? They don't. I mean, like, it'll be, they'll go to LA, they'll go to New York, and
that'll be it.
And that'll be it. Yeah.
Well, the state of movie watching is changing, and I'm sure this is something we will revisit time and time again. Until then, we will talk to you soon.
You have been listening to Why Does the Wilhelm Scream with your hosts, Brock and Jason. If you liked today's episode, do us a favor and rate, review, and subscribe in whatever application you use to consume podcasts these days. You can reach us by visiting whydoesthewilhelmscream.com. If you are in the DFW area, we would love to see you at a Fort Worth Film Club event. You can learn more about those and find a full schedule at fortworthfilmclub.com. And you can learn about my foundation and how we are trying to foster the next generation of film lovers at realhousefoundation.org. That's REEL housefoundation.org. Till next time.